the Dr. Carol Francis Talk Radio Show. Let's make life happen together with authors, scientists, researchers, both inside the box and outside the box of understanding so that you can live a life full of your success, curiosity, enjoyment, happiness, and richness of life in every respect. Let's go beyond our limits, and let's help others go beyond their limits as well. Welcome. Well, you have joined Dr. Carol Francis with author Tom T. Moore, and you will not leave this show the same as you began. And isn't that the intention all along, that we evolve ourselves? But Tom T. Moore is going to give you some tools for advancing the comfort and well-being of your life and those around you. He's also going to intrigue you with communication with angels and, yes, ETs. So hold on, think outside the box, think inside your life. Tom T. Moore, you're going to take us down the gentle way and into the first contact. How are you today, Tom?
I am doing great. Thank you, Dr. Carol, and hello to everyone around the world.
Great. Well, you are first going to help us understand what this absolutely amazing tool that you are very excited about. This is a tool that you actually contacted me about. Tell us all about it.
Sure. The gentle way is a modality that's a giant step forward from, if you've heard of the law of attraction. And basically, it's where you request benevolent outcomes in your life, and it can be for anything. I mean anything. And in my belief system, I believe it goes to my guardian angel, and my guardian angel is able to look at the road ahead and know if what I'm requesting is in my best short-term and best long-term interests. Now, if someone believes that the request goes to their higher self or to God or Jesus or Muhammad, Allah or a Hindu deity or Buddha, it doesn't matter because it works, and it works perfectly, and I've never been able to say that for any modality that I'd ever tried in the last 30 or 40 years.
So it just seems like it's very respectful of anybody's point of view as long as it's a deeply held spiritual point of view. Is that the purpose of what you're suggesting?
Sure. Even an atheist could make these requests and just think that they're just creating some kind of positive affirmation, So it works with everybody. It's just that I've been told that my guardian angel handles the requests and does them with great love and affection. And if it's on my soul contract or within my soul contract perimeters, it will be taken care of, and I will get the request, whether it be a mundane request for a parking spot in front of a busy restaurant or mall or whatever, or something really much more important to people like the perfect job or the perfect home or the perfect mate for them. So it operates at all levels.
Okay, so the tool is what? Because actually this is a very simple tool, a kind of a state of mind, emotion, and actual words. How make the tool usable for us? So how does this tool work?
Sure. It's very simple to do. I was what was called inspired to word it this way so that there was no deities involved. All you simply say is, I request a most benevolent outcome for a parking spot in front of XYZ restaurant. Thank you. And you don't do that as you're pulling into the parking lot. You try and do that before you even leave. And you'll find that when you drive up, someone's pulling out of the parking spot right in front of the door just as you arrive. And that's how simplistic it is, but it's also extremely powerful, because when you get into these more important requests, you'll find that it works just as well. And if it doesn't seem to work, it's because something better is on the way for you, and you don't know about it in your conscious life.
So the simple request for yourself is, I request a most benevolent outcome for, and then fill in the blank and then say thank you. And then also dovetail it with kind of the other side of it was when you're making requests for others, and kind of vary that when you're making a request for others. Do you want to explain that?
Sure. Again, now this is my belief system. The requests that you make are supposed to be specifically for yourself. That's one of the rules of requesting benevolent outcomes. But beyond that, if you want to request a benevolent outcome for someone else, something else, whether it be for your dog or cat or something like that, you say, I ask any and all beings to come to the aid and comfort of blank, 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 thank you. And you can word that according to the situation. So, but you say, I ask, and when I communicated with my guardian angel, I said, I don't see, both of them sound like they're the same, request and ask, and I was told, go get a dictionary. So I did, and it is different.
So the difference would be what in terms of the cosmic responsiveness? I mean, why is there such a distinction?
Well, one of the requests goes to your guardian angel. The other one, the I ask, goes to a different set of angels, what we call angels that are actually whole souls. There are about 1 million of these whole souls, and they take care of all the prayers that are said on earth by every religion anywhere. And so these angels, these prayer angels, take care of all these requests, and so it goes to a different group than it does to your guardian angel.
Okay, folks, so we're going to get into more detail about why this works, what Tom's experience with all of this is. But, Tom, if you could first share some amazing stories that you received. I mean, your book, number 3, which is the one that I read, The Gentle Way 3, Master Your Life by Tom T. Moore, which is available on Amazon, etc., and also his website. What is your website, Tom?
Through my website, you can go to www.thegentlewaybook.com.
Wonderful.
Thegentlewaybook.com.
So, Tom, I know this is not really fair to do to you, but if you could possibly select one or two of your most favorite examples of how powerful and significant these tools are.
No problem. There are some that really stand out from others. One would be a lady emailed to tell me that she lived on a farm up in Kansas, and suddenly there was a tornado bearing down on her house, and she grabbed the kids and ran for the basement, and she requested a benevolent outcome, and the tornado lifted up and went right over her house and went on. Another lady wrote to tell me that her daughter was, who also requested benevolent outcomes, was walking downtown in Union City, California, which I've never been to, and there was a van with some men that started following her. And so she requested a benevolent outcome for her safety, and just then a group of people came outside from a house or a building, and the van drove away. And her daughter truly felt that she was saved from possible harm by those people coming out at that very exact moment. Okay? And then another one that I received was from a lady who wrote and said, Tom, let me tell you about the 60-second home invasion. And she lives up in Seattle with her boyfriend, and their housemate had just set up a brand new TV upstairs for them, and they just started watching TV, probably put the box out on the alley, because suddenly there was this crash downstairs, and they ran down to see what had happened, and it was 2 masked men, and they pistol whipped him and kicked both of them to the floor, and so she requested a benevolent outcome at that time. And suddenly there was this tinkling bell outside by the alley. And these guys thought someone was on the way, and so they ran out the door with only his billfold, which only had his ID in it and nothing else. This all took place in 60 minutes. What had happened was that the roommate had run out the back door in his skivvies with 2 knives and had run through the gate, which caused the bell to ring, and ran next door trying to get somebody to call the police, which obviously they were going to let him in looking like that. And as she reported, there were 14 police cars that came. So they were, but it was everything happened within 60 seconds. So that was another one. I just had one. Wow. Just recently for me, I never go anywhere without requesting a benevolent outcome for my drive. And so in this particular case, I'd requested a benevolent outcome for my drive back from getting a haircut, and I was on the North Dallas Tollway, which is the area that I live in, and I was coming up on the Legacy exit in Plano, for anyone in your audience that has been in this area. And so I was driving, and I was on the lane that would be ready to exit when the exit lane came up, and suddenly a pickup truck right beside me. Obviously, I was in their blind spot. They just came right on over, and I mean, I had to slam on my brakes and actually had to go onto the shoulder of the highway in order to avoid being hit, and I wasn't, and the truck went on, and I honked, which was about all I could do, and went on to the exit. So that was one that happened, and then several months ago, on that very same exit, but after I'd already exited, I turned the corner. Of course, I'd requested a benevolent outcome for my drive, and I turned the corner behind a big black pickup, and he was in the left-hand lane, and I was in the middle lane because I didn't want to be so close to him. And as we approached the first signal light, going about 40, 45 miles an hour, a lady had not seen him. Either she was on her phone texting, or there was a car that was also that was going to turn opposite, and maybe her vision was blocked, but she turned right in front of him, and he broadsided her at 40 or 45 miles an hour, lifted her SUV off the ground, spun it around 180 degrees right into my lane, and I slammed on the brakes and came within 6 feet of hitting her driver's side door. So that was another time. So I don't go anywhere without requesting benevolent outcomes for my drives.
In a moment, Tom, I'm going to ask you how you verify this and all the other aspects of communicating with angels in terms of your experiences and knowing that it's beyond coincidence, beyond your imagination. But first, there is just one sentence in your book that I must just reveal to people. It was just so powerful, I keep reading it over and over again. And here's what it says. To be of service, these individuals volunteer. In fact, millions of years ago did. And the sentence continues, as we have these hard, challenging lives completely veiled from knowing who we really are. And then we have these NDOs that can be granted to us. Now, the reason I took that out of context is, Tom, I was so intrigued by the recognition that you are saying we have challenging lives, and they're completely veiled from us. We don't know who we really are compared to what is beyond. So these NDOs are like a way of connecting to those that are here to assist while we live kind of blind to where we're going and where we're coming from and who we are. Can you talk to me more about that?
Sure. These, what we call guardian angels, are actually whole souls, and they're actually what are called golden light beings, okay? And the reason they're called golden light beings is that their vibrational levels have risen over millions of years to the point where they emanate a golden light, and so they're extremely experienced whole souls. And if I call them, and they like the term servants of the Creator. That's what they feel that they are. Okay, but if I called them that, no one would know what I was talking about. So I call them what everyone generally calls them, and that's guardian angels. And so they're there to assist us, but we have to ask for their assistance. That's one of the 6 Benevolent Outcomes rules. Number 1 is you request the assistance. And number 2, it must be benevolent, not only for you, but for everyone connected with the request. So in other words, a soldier in Afghanistan couldn't say, I request the most benevolent outcome for killing my enemy before he kills me. That wouldn't work. He can't say, I request a benevolent outcome for coming back from this patrol safely, or for my truck to be safe on my drive from Kabul to my outpost, something like that. But they can't. It has to be benevolent for everyone connected with the request. And number 3, it must be a request for you specifically. Benevolent prayers are what you say for others, and it must be said out loud or in writing, because this is a physical world, and it has to be said out loud. And there's no limit, number 5, no limit to the number of times that you can request benevolent outcomes. And number 6, trust in the process. I recommend starting with these simple requests for a parking spot or whatever, the mundane request, a seat on a busy subway or a bus or whatever, however you get to work each day.
So how is this different from prayer, or how is this different from the law of attraction, or how does it extend both or interface with both?
Sure, and I missed the first one.
Yeah, how does this differ or coincide with prayer, and how does this differ or coincide with the law of attraction? Right. Sure.
In a way, it's a form of prayer. You can look at it that way because you're asking a spiritual deity, or a spiritual entity, I should say, to assist you, but allowing for everyone's different beliefs. And I mean, even people that believe in angels have wide views of differing views of what angels are. Okay, some people believe in angels, but some people don't believe in guardian angels, as an example. So that's why I was inspired to have that simple line that works for everyone. Now, as far as the law of attraction, I tried the law of attraction long before it was called the law of attraction. I've been around for quite a long time, and these modalities were around, but someone just kind of, named it something different and put it in another box, so to speak, or whatever. And I tried for years. I had a photo of a jet plane, a private jet plane, that I sat on behind my desk on the credenza for several years, thinking, well, if I had enough money to buy a private jet, I would be really, really successful in business, because I come from the business side. I'm not, I didn't start out as a writer. I've been in business for over 40 years, on my own businesses, and so that's where I was coming from. I was looking for ways that would give me an edge of being a small businessman, and it didn't happen. Well, the reason it didn't happen, as I understand now, is that it was not on my soul contract. So, as an example, when I started requesting benevolent outcomes, when a friend of mine and I tried to put the funding together for a package of movies several years ago, based on a writer by the name of Peter Cheney, who's an English writer who wrote spy novels in World War II, and I tried to put financing together for 2 years, and And each time I would get close to putting the financing together, it would fall apart for the strangest, weirdest reasons. And finally, I asked my guardian angel, Theo, I said, Theo, why is it that, I've been requesting benevolent outcomes and it's still not working? He said, Tom, that's not on your soul contract. He said, if you were to go down that path, you would never have reached the people that you're going to reach with your books and your speaking and all. And that's why. And so after I understood that, I said, okay, on to other things.
Clarity.
So that's what it does. Sometimes you don't want to go down that path. If the law of attraction, you keep saying, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, and you get that, maybe that's the wrong thing for you. Or maybe there's something a lot better that you could request, but you don't know the request. So that's why you put it in Spirit's hands to know what's best for you.
When I've worked with the law of attraction or all the different laws of manifesting or intentionality and written about it, worked with people, I think it is very useful for helping people to tap into that they do have power and influence in their lives so that they're not living, weak and uncertain and feeling like it's at the mercy of fate or at the mercy even of God, But one thing I really noted in your book, which is The Gentle Way 3, again available on Amazon.com, The Gentle Way 3, you mentioned that this is all about people learning the experience of co-creating with Spirit, co-creating their life, the veiled aspects of their life, the passions of their life, the moments of their life, but they're co-creating with Spirit. You want to talk more about that?
Sure. My guardian angel, Theo, says that when you start requesting benevolent outcomes, it really does several different things for you, which I didn't know when I started out. All I knew is that it was working better than I had ever seen any modality work, and so I was just happy. It was like better than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you might say. And so it was, but I found out that people would ask me, well, how can I work on ascension? Well, when you start requesting benevolent outcomes, Theo says that it automatically takes you to another level. He says you can read all the books and listen to all the speakers and everything, but until you start implementing, until you start co-creating with Spirit, you will remain at one level. But when you start co-creating, you tap into another level, and you start raising your vibrational level a little bit at a time. So over a several-year period, your vibrational level will go up fantastically well as compared to all these very, very difficult machinations that some people try and get you to try that are so difficult, and a tiny percentage of the audience would be able to do them.
You have people all over the world that are responding to your blogs who have contributed to your books, and you say that the benevolent outcome in your life will increase your awareness, feel a lightening of spirit, lower the levels of fear in your life, lower the levels of stress, handle problems and challenges, have more success in life, raise your vibrational level, and increase your spirituality. And Tom, I think it would be wonderful, everybody, to know how you kind of landed on discovering this. What was the avenue through dreams, through dialogues with angels that led you to discovering this most benevolent outcome avenue of communicating to the angels?
Sure. And it was very simple. I was like everyone else. I read a lot. Was reading a lot of different types of spiritual books and things like that. And I was reading each month the Sedona Journal of Emergence, and one of the authors that I really liked, who had two series of books, one called the Shining the Light series, and the other one was called the Explorer Race series. His name is Robert Shapiro. And Robert Shapiro is considered a master trance channel, okay? And he can channel just about anything from anywhere, you name it. And so one of his articles in the Sedona Journal, he was channeling a creator being that assists our creator in helping with running some things in the universe, and his name was Zosh. And Zosh said in this article, you can request benevolent outcomes in your life. And I said, that's kind of interesting, because I'd noticed at that time, 16 years ago, the word benevolent was not being used very much. Believe it or not, it has increased in usage a lot more in the ensuing years. And so here, benevolent had stood out like a sore thumb, so to speak, in many other articles that I'd read, and so that's why it stood out for me. And I said, well, gosh, I'll just try and experiment with this, just like I experimented with law of attraction and other things, astrology or numerology, whatever. And so I started experimenting with it, and that's when I discovered that it worked perfectly and worked better than anything else I'd ever tried. And so eventually I started writing, some articles for the Sedona Journal. I got to know Robert Shapiro as a friend. Turns out he's a member, a soul fragment from my soul cluster, which was kind of interesting. And so my articles were extremely well received. People really resonated with them, and a lot of people started requesting benevolent outcomes. So it's grown over the last 16 years from those initial efforts.
It also, if I'm recalling correctly, it also extended from some work you started doing with dreams. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the things that I have discovered is that, of course, dreams are messages from your soul, and some of the dreams are. Some of the dreams just take care of the normal life that you're living here, and other dreams you're going to other parts of the universe to help other beings with their problems. Okay, that's what I've found out about dreams in a very short, compact paragraph. And so I started recording my dreams in 1979. And I recorded some even earlier than that, but I decided I was going to really start doing it. Why, I can't remember it now. And 2 weeks after I started recording my dreams, I had this very, very vivid dream of an explosion with a woman and some men involved. At that time, my wife and I owned an international wholesale tour company, and we were supposed to be going to Manila for a World Congress of Travel Agents. And so it was so vivid that we dropped Manila off of our itinerary and added days to Hong Kong and Taiwan because we still wanted to go visit the Far East. And so, sure enough, on the very first day of the exposition of the convention, terrorists exploded a bomb at the front of the convention hall where I like to sit, and it injured 10 travel agents. And so, and later, a woman who worked in the Philippine trade office in Los Angeles and 4 men were arrested as being the terrorists who set the bomb. So after that time, I said, I'm going to record my dreams every day for the rest of my life, and I have.
Wow.
So one of the things that I think dreams does for you is that when you start wanting to get into meditation and taking meditation farther than just sitting and concentrating on the light or whatever, and you want to communicate with your own guardian angel or whoever you want to communicate with, I believe that the practice of recording dreams, because you're still in what's called sort of an alpha state when you're waking up, and you're at a state where you can still remember the dreams, but once you become fully conscious, they go away. And that is sort of the same way it works when I communicate with Theo and Gaia and whoever else I communicate with. I do it in a light alpha state, and I'm able to ask the questions and type the answers on my computer. And at the end of the hour, as an example, I did an hour this morning. At the end of the hour, I couldn't tell you almost anything that I typed. I have to go back and read it to see what I received on the questions and answers.
Oh, so interesting. I got the impression then from your book that this did seem like a way of kind of progressing through a spiritual self-discovery or the spiritual cosmos of going from dreams and then discovering that MBOs are most benevolent outcome requests also begin to dovetail you like a preliminary way of moving you toward greater and greater connection to the domain of what's spiritual, what's not non-physical. And then we walk right into you discovering you are communicating with angels and then with ETs. So now we're going to move into what I think is harder to take in, because I do believe in the power of attraction. I believe you don't even have to believe in anything else. You can attract whatever. But here suddenly we're talking about a belief in communication with other than physical or what we can experience as physical entities. So my first question to you, Tom, is how in the world do you verify that these are not products of your wonderful imagination or your wonderful wish or hope? Because I know I have a wonderful imagination, and how do I differentiate that? How do people differentiate imagination from an actual communique with non-visible form?
So let's start with actually how it happened, initially.
Okay, all right.
I became friends with Robert Shapiro, and he actually channeled not only Zosh, but also an Indian shaman living in the 1600s, American Indian shaman, in the 1600s in the western part of the United States, because all of our lives, as people will someday understand, all of our lives are all taking place at the same time. Time is an illusion for us. Okay, so one time I asked the Indian shaman, whose name in English is Reveals the Mysteries. I said, Reveals the Mysteries, is it my soul contract to support Robert Shapiro's work? And he said, no, it isn't. And I thought, well, that's awfully strange, because it seemed like that's what I was doing by pushing benevolent outcomes. And so this kind of grated on me for a couple of years. And then my wife and I attended a seminar put on in Sedona, Arizona, by Dick Sutphen, or Richard Sutphen, as he likes to be called now, Sutphen, and he's a master hypnotist and also the author of million-selling books. Born Again to Be Together was one of them. And so it was to increase your psychic abilities. And so we attended that. I had attended one or two of his seminars before. My wife had not, and so I thought I was just going to support her. And so the second day of the seminar, we were going to be put under again for like the second or third time that day, and this time we were supposed to try and do automatic writing. I decided I was going to try and contact Reveals the Mysteries and ask him a further question about this. So when we put us under, I said, Reveals the Mysteries, are you there? And he said, yes, I am, Tom. And I said, wow, this is neat. And so I said, okay, Reveals, why am I the guy out here pushing benevolent outcomes so hard and nobody else seems to? And he said, Tom, he said, you're an Indian shaman living at the same time I am. Your name is Stillwater, and you had decided to incarnate into the 20th and 21st centuries in order to reintroduce people to the gentle way. So I got the name of the book the first time I ever communicated with Reveals the Mysteries. And so eventually that led to me communicating with who I call Theo, because my guardian angel says that we do not have the vocal cords that can pronounce angelic names, and we'd become frustrated. So he said, we're not big on names over here. He said, you can call me Tom, Dick, or Harry, but he said Tom would be a little difficult in your meditations. And so, yes, he's likes to make funny comments all the time, and so I thought about it a while, and a couple of weeks later, suddenly this name Theo popped into my head, where I don't know from, probably from a past life or something, and ever since I've called him Theo. But if somebody wants to be able to call their guardian angel by a name, you simply say out loud, "Guardian angel, what name shall I call you?" And some people may pick it up within a few seconds, or it may take a couple of weeks, like it did me. Slow people, and but you'll have a name that it may be something really strange, or it may be a name like person down the block or whatever. So it's all up to the individual.
Okay. So then, how in this powerful experience? Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So when I started asking questions, okay, the way I found that I knew that it was not coming from me, okay, were in many instances where I thought I knew the answer, or I thought I knew what the answer would be, and it would be completely opposite of what I thought. Okay, and so when you're communicating and you're getting information completely different than you thought it would be, that's a pretty good indication that you are definitely communicating with spirit. Now, obviously, when I do these meditations, I surround myself with white light, and even then a bubble of white light, and then another bubble of gold light even beyond that for complete protection. That's another way that I protect myself, to make sure that the messages are coming through good. And before I do a meditation, I say, I request a most benevolent outcome to receive these messages perfectly. Thank you. And that's another way, because suddenly you're drawing in your guardian angel to also protect you.
Okay, so then one of the verifications then is that you're getting answers that are contradictory to your own sensibilities or your own structure of things. Are there any other ways in which you say, look, I need to put this to the test, and I need to be able to verify this? That became really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously some of the things that I have learned would be way out of my normal knowledge. Okay, I come from a business background. Now, the two problems that I have in doing this work is that I'm pretty bad on names, and I'm not the greatest on numbers. Now, the way I've been able to find how to work around numbers is that let's see if I can give an instance. Let's just say if I want to know, well, how many years ago was this pyramid built? Was it at least 10,000 years ago? Yes, it was. Was it 12,000? Yes, just a little more than that time. Okay, 13,000? No, that's too much. It's more like 12,500. That's sort of the way sometimes I have to work into numbers, because I really had a hard time starting out in my comprehension of numbers coming through. And names have always been even harder. I'm still working on names.
That's very interesting. So these conversations that you have with Theo, what have been some things that Theo has revealed, maybe recently or long-term, that you just have this burning urge to say on this program, that Theo has just said, let's just move this forward, let's get this message out?
Oh, gosh, that's kind of hard to say.
Put you on the spot again.
Let me think. Well, here's something. Okay, here's something. I had a friend. We were at a party on Saturday night. A group of friends. We get together for dinners about once a month. Okay, and one of my friends believes that where I believe it's a guardian angel that helps me with the parking spot, he believes that it's his higher self. Okay, so I decided to ask Theo about this. So I said, Theo, some people believe in parking angels are actually their higher self. Your comments, please. Yes, Tom, here we encounter belief systems. There are many people who differentiate in their concept of spirit, Tom, just as there are different sects, shall we call them, of one religion such as Christianity. There are people who believe in angels, but you ask them if they believe in guardian angels, and they will say no. There are many different beliefs about your own guardian angels. We will use that term here for recognition. Even you used to believe a GA such as myself was a little ball of light and whose capabilities mirrored that of Clarence life. So here we arrive at your question. As I have told you before, we work closely with what you call your higher selves and we call your souls. We intimately know your soul contracts for each life and do our best to keep you on those soul contracts. If your friends wish to believe it was their higher selves or souls finding that parking space for them, allow. It is just another belief system, as I mentioned above. We care not who gets credit for that parking space, Tom. We are just happy that person is asking for assistance at all, as so many millions and, yes, billions of people do not ask for any assistance, and so we allow them to stray off their soul paths as your own souls have instructed us to do. So when you get messages like that, all the time that are very, very deep, it causes you to want to go on and on and on.
Absolutely. I mean, and does your wife also communicate with angels?
No. She, shall we say, can...
Go ahead.
Well, okay, it would get into something she doesn't want me to talk about, so
I don't mean to pry. I guess I don't mean to pry, and I apologize. See, there you go. But at the same time, I'm curious about when you are with other people who also speak with angels. Do you find the angels dialoguing with each other while the two of you are also in dialogue? And I was thinking that your wife and you might have the best communication in that regard.
Well, I mean, she's always saying, well, my guides are telling me this, my guides are telling me that, okay? And we can jump into to the subject of guides for just a second. Guides, people have asked me, well, do you have two guardian angels? No, you have one guardian angel that, as I say, is a super amazing being that not only handles your soul, but thousands and thousands of other souls, okay? All at the same time for all the lives and all the parallel lives, which are 12, going on all at the same time. And so, but you also have one major guide that comes from your soul cluster that's with you your whole life, and then most of the other souls that are acting as guides come in as they're needed and leave if they're not needed anymore. As an example, when my wife and I owned the wholesale tour company, I had a couple of guides that helped me with that tour business. When I went into the international film and TV distribution business, I have a couple of guides that helped me with that. And when I started writing these books, I have two writer guides. And I know my mother also is one of my guides who helps me with all things feminine, because 80% of the people that subscribe to my newsletter are female.
Sure. Well, that's interesting. So there's a difference between the archangels and angels and guides and higher self. And then where do ETs fit into this matrix?
Well, ETs are, they're simply soul fragments of souls. I mean, that's basically what they are. Your soul is not just this little ball of light like I thought guardian angels were. Your soul can be having 500,000 to 1 million lives all over the universe going on at the same time. That's how powerful your souls are. So, on Earth, typically there's a cluster of soul fragments that your soul has sort of spit out or created, and typically each soul cluster has an average of 6 to 12 fragments in the soul cluster. And I used to think they were peas in a pod, but Theo has explained to me that each fragment of a soul is imbued with a different personality and different interests. So as an example, my soul fragment has an interest in religions, and I've been around when all the religions of the world were created in past lives. Okay, and but as an example, my buddy Antura, who is this ET I communicate with telepathically on this water world in the Sirius B star system, he's a member of my soul cluster. But when I asked him that question recently, he said no. His soul interest or soul fragment interest is that he's an explorer, and he said not only exploring worlds or continents. You know, when he's on Earth, he's had 800 Earth lives, but he said I explore ideas and concepts. So that's his soul interest. So each soul fragment has a different interest.
That's so interesting. Okay, so now we go to Antura, and you call him a brother on another planet.
Yeah.
So is this and in your book called The First Contact, and again we're talking with Tom T. Moore, and now we're moving on to discussing The First Contact, and you can find out more about his materials on thegentlewaybook.com, thegentlewaybook.com. Now we move into that whole discussion about First Contact, how he has given you, Antura has given you so much information about what's going to happen on this planet, interfacing with Pleiadians and Sirians. I mean, it goes on. So please, walk us into this new out-of-the-box way of looking.
It does go on. There's hundreds and hundreds of questions. I began communicating with him in 2008. At that time, I was having a conversation with Theo one day, and we were talking about ruins, ET ruins in Europe. I don't remember how we exactly got on the subject, but that's what we were talking about. And he said, a Syrian will show you that one day. And I said, I started thinking, I said, do you mean me personally, or do you mean you human-wise? And he said, no, you personally. And he said, I said, oh, well, that'll be neat. He said, yes, he's tuning in right now. And after I got over the shock of thinking that I'd been on a private conversation with my own guardian angel, and it turned out it was a party line, he said, do you want to start talking to him, or you want to communicate with him? I said, no, let me think of some questions and let me get back with you. And so a couple of weeks later, I'd done a page of questions, and so that's when I started communicating with him. Now, at the time that I started communicating with him, you have to understand, you ask about how do you verify that what you're getting is correct or whatever.
Beyond imagination.
I had the idea. I'd always read in channeled things and all that the first people that we would come across that would introduce themselves to us would look exactly like us. They were. I knew they were Pleiadians, but I figured anybody else that would be making contact with us would look exactly like us. Well, so I started asking Antura questions, and I didn't have his name at first, but it took a while to get his name. It was Antu, and then Antura Ra, and then finally one day he said Antura. It's like he almost yelled the last syllable into my ear, and I'm sorry.
No, I was just fine. No, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I thought I interrupted you.
No.
And so I started asking these questions. Well, what do you look like? And you have to. He told me. He said, Tom, I'm under the same rules that you're under with Theo and Gaia and all. I will answer all your questions, but they have to be very specific questions. You can't ask me general questions. And so that's why that whole book, or question after question after question, I have to ask. And like I would ask him, as an example, a question about the mothership that he's coming in. And maybe I'd ask one in 2008 and another question in 2009, another in 10, and so on. And so when we put the book together, we combined all the questions about the mothership into basically one chapter with another chapter right after that on the crew that's coming in the spaceship, and another chapter on the scout craft. So in other words, we had to combine all these questions together. So when I started asking him about what he looked like, suddenly I'm hearing that he's got webbed fingers, and he lives in a water world, and he's got webbed feet. And suddenly I said, "Wow, you don't look anything like us, do you?" so that was a real surprise for me that it turned out he's an amphibian living in a water world, and he can swim down to depths of 5,000 feet, below the surface of the ocean in his home world. And all of their cities are like these bubble cities that were built on top of caves that when they originally, the souls originally started having lives on this water world 18 million years ago, they had to live in caves in the water, and their lives were always at peril because there's this big whale-like creature that loves to eat little tadpoles, like they were. And when they were young, they're small little guys, and then they grow up and they look like amphibians. And if anyone has ever watched the Hellboy movies, there's a character in the movie by the name of Abe Sapien, Sapien, that you can Google images for, that's as close as we can get to what Anturo looks like as far as a science fiction character in a movie right now.
Oh, that's interesting. So he gives you this visual image of himself or description, and do you anticipate that you will ever meet him physical form to physical form?
Oh, yes. He's coming in 2017. You have to understand, first things first, in 2015, the Pleiadians will come, and they're going to look just like us. And the Pleiadians will spoon-feed us information, but it'll be a giant shock to many religions who don't believe there's anybody else but us on Earth. And lo and behold, these guys show up in a nice-looking spaceship, and they're from the Pleiades. So that happens in 2015. In 2016, the Zeta Grays, those little guys with the big eyes that are only like 3 feet tall, they'll come to apologize for abducting almost 26,000 people in order to save their race. They were sort of harvesting our DNA, specific DNA signatures, in order to create a hybrid race because their race was dying. And so they're going to come and apologize for that, which I think is going to be sort of traumatic for people because as I've gotten more into this, these abductions, they didn't just abduct them one time. They would abduct them typically on an average 30 to 50 times, and some people as many as 100 times. And,
wow.
And if they abducted a female and she was childbearing, they would keep her on the spaceship for 9 months till she had the baby, and then they would put her back into her bed as if she had, not left 5 minutes ago. And if she went to a gynecologist, the gynecologist would say, "Oh, you've been pregnant recently," and they'd say, "No, I haven't." They wouldn't understand what had happened to them. Later on, the Zetas would get to the point where they could remove the fetus at 4 months, and they would not have to keep the people on board the spaceship for such a long period of time. So these are some of the things. Even some of them have come out since this book was published, because I keep asking questions. I'm working on first contact conversations with an ET2 now, and people send me in questions every week for me to ask Antura about different things, abductions to you name it.
Do you recommend that? Like we can say, you recommend, definitely, we all do, most benevolent outcome requests. And you would recommend that we all try to make contact with our dreams, our dream world, and then thirdly, at the spiritual co-creation capacity, then the angels. Do you also recommend that we try to connect with our ET compatriots?
Yeah, but I really recommend. Now, you have to understand, a lot of people don't understand telepathy, and really communicating with spirit or communicating with someone across the universe, which is instantaneous, and that's something that Theo says it will be many years before our scientists figure out what part of the brain is the receptor for these messages, whether they be from spirit or from another individual across the universe or across the galaxy or whatever it happens to be. But it's all a form of telepathy, and I recommend that you surround yourself with white light. Go into meditation. If you're already doing meditation, just don't go as deeply as you normally do. Stay in what I call, and I think other people do too, the alpha state. Don't go into the theta state because it'll be too deep. It's like you'll almost go to sleep. And it's what I call tripping out. So you stay in that alpha state where you can ask the questions, type the questions on a computer, or if you want to write them on a notepad and write the answers, whatever is most comfortable for you, or speak the words and record them in a recorder. That would be much harder for me because then I'd have to transcribe, and I wouldn't be the greatest on transcribing. So anyway, that's my recommendation. Start with your own guardian angel who loves you dearly and will protect you. And when Theo connected me with Antura, I had no doubt that this was a benevolent being because my own guardian angel introduced me to him. Okay?
Yes. Oh wow! It's a lot to take in. Yes.
Yep.
You find that? Yep.
Yeah, and it's like going. It's like the Matrix. How deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
So.
And how many layers and how many, like on your timeline, for example, or how many soul connections? It's like you could go into all these I wouldn't say multi-dimensional ways, but I don't mean the word dimensional in terms of the way the scientists use it, but there's so many different delineations from what you're talking about that people could travel into.
Right. I have a whole chapter on timelines in the First Contact book because Antura is going to visit me on timelines like 12 down through 5. And below, and these are all parallel worlds where there's 12 me's, okay? Except that on timelines 1 and 2, I died from congestive heart failure in 2006, so I'm no longer around. In timelines 3 and 4, I never got into the international film business, and I've written a book on my experiences in the tour business, but I've never, from what I understand, I have never contacted Theo or anyone like that, and it's only been on timelines 5 and above that all these contacts have been made.
So now the timelines, are these all 12 occurring simultaneously, or
Yes.
is time not, they are? Now, can you visit these different timelines?
You do in your dreams, actually. You'll find dreams where you're, like, as an example, when we decided to sell our wholesale tour company, and then I started an international distribution company for film, I kept having dreams where I was doing things in the tour business. I knew that on some level, and I didn't know anything about timelines at that time. I was, familiar with the term parallel worlds, and I knew in some parallel world I was still in the tour business. And so that's, you can, if you record your dreams, you can see times where you'll be, living in a different place, but you're maybe the same age or whatever, or maybe you'll dream about a little bit younger. It varies.
Now, have you been able to verify these sort of like coexistences? Have you, or are you just piecing them together based on the dreams or the information given to you? I mean, what is your data source? What are your encyclopedias, so to speak, your Wikipedia?
Well, needless to say, I've asked tons of questions of Theo about these timelines, and I understand he's told me that the timelines are divided into 4s and then subdivided into 2s, and he's given me specific information about my lives in each one of the timelines, where, as an example, on timelines 9 and above, when I went to Texas Christian University, on these timelines, I graduated with a degree in finance. I specialized in business. But on the upper timelines, 9 and above, I majored in English, and I said, well, what about, I went through ROTC and became a first lieutenant. And he said, well, you didn't have to on those timelines. Vietnam did not occur. On those timelines, they settled their differences, and so you didn't have to go into the military. And you, after you graduated, you became a writer. You married your college sweetheart, moved to Colorado. You divorced eventually, and I said, well, I could have told me that, because she sent me a Dear John letter when I was in Korea with the peacekeeping force. So anyway, those are the differences in lives. You can be obese in one life and slim and trim in another life. So it all varies according to what the soul wants, the biggest bang in the buck, and that's why they created 12 timelines. There's no other place in the universe that has a space-time continuum like ours and has 12 parallel worlds. We're the only ones.
Not even individuals from different planets that are sharing our time-space continuum?
No. They're not in our space-time continuum. That's they have to enter our space-time continuum when they come here.
So where does that space-time continuum vary, or is it like at the edge of the solar system, or the?
It seems like it's kind of like the solar system. I haven't quite got a really close handle on that, but it seems like these guys. You have to understand. Some of these societies are well over 1 billion years old, and that's just in the Sirius star system. There are some societies that are over 10 billion years old. Okay. So we're talking about really ancient societies. We're talking about so far ahead of us in technology. It's amazing. But the one thing that all of these societies are looking for us to help them is that they reached a plateau on their vibrational levels, and they've remained the same for millions of years. They've gotten stuck. And so, as I laughingly call it, when we go to the stars, we're going to kick alien butt and we're going to get them moving again. Because what we're supposed to do is introduce tiny bits of negativity to them. As an example, a game. A game requires a winner and a loser, but but they don't have games because they don't have negativity. And we're going to introduce games, and as Antura describes it, he says, when you reach the stars, and it won't be till 3250 when we start going to the stars, and but when we reach the stars, we're going to bring this negativity, and people are going to start raising their vibrational levels again, and they're going to be so excited about it, they will become like our missionaries, and they'll spread it to the whole universe. So that's we're going to be the catalysts to do that.
Huh. It reminds me of what Teal Scott talks about, that we're the planet of contrast, and that in providing the contrast, we actually provide the tension for growth. So interesting. You say in toward the end of your book, The Gentle Way 3, my guardian angels have told me that even with as long as I have been requesting MBOs, around 14 years now, if I were to stop requesting them tomorrow, it wouldn't be too long before I would be just like everyone else, simply reacting to events and not being protected and guided.
Yes.
Interesting.
And Theo says when you're requesting benevolent outcomes, you still have challenges in your life. It doesn't knock out your challenges. But what happens, he says, if you're not requesting MBOs, you get to a challenge, and it's like having to climb over a brick wall. But when you're requesting benevolent outcomes, it's like a big speed bump. You still have the challenge, but it lessens the severity of it.
Well, Tom T. Moore, and you can again get his information off of his website, thegentlewaybook.com. I know you have a presentation you're going to be doing soon. Tell us about that, and then also think about what your parting message is to all of us who are learning to think outside the box.
Sure. I am going to be doing a global teleclass, it's called, global teleclass for the Hilton Johnson organization on Wednesday night. It's a full hour that will be just on the First Contact Conversations with an ET book. And I will be their very last presenter because they are ending their free teleclasses, and I'll be the last one to do it. So I'll close the door and leave the building. And anyone can Google Hilton Johnson Organization free teleclasses, or you can go on my website, which is even easier. Go to articles and news, where all my newsletters are archived all the way back to 2007. Choose the very latest one, and down at the bottom it'll say under appearances, it'll give you a link to the website to sign up for the teleclass. So that's the easiest way. Now, as far as my parting words, as Theo says, he says, you can stay on this dusty, hard path that you're on and always reacting to things happening in your life, or you can start requesting benevolent outcomes, and it takes you onto another path that's easier, and you can have time to smell the roses. It just takes the stress and the fear out of life, and you become so much a happier person. And you can read that in all those 350 pages of stories in the Gentle Way 3, where people have sent me these stories about how fantastic it's working in their lives in specific stories.
Tom, thank you so much for taking your time to share this with us. I'm so looking forward, listeners, to hearing your reactions and tapping into trying out what Most Benevolent Outcome requests do for you as well. Tom T. Moore, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to getting to know you more and seeing your other books down the road.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks, everyone, and have a most benevolent day.
Absolutely. And to you as well, Tom. Cheers, everybody. You take care. You invigorate yourself to live life fully and completely, and here's yet another tool for you to do so. Cheers.